In InDesign terms, when you continue the flow of text from one text frame to another, you create threaded text. So it's a story that begins on one page and goes to another page and then another. This is threaded text. And I want to talk about some of the things that we need to consider when working with threaded text using this very simplistic example of a nursery rhyme. So let's imagine that these are different pages. Now, when I select the first page or the first frame, we see that there is in the output an arrow indicating that the text is continued. If I select the second or third, then we see that it is continued from in the input and it is continued on indicated in the output. If I come to my view menu and to extras, I can show my text threads. This is currently turned on, but we're not seeing the text threads because I am currently in the preview view mode. If I press W to switch to the normal view mode, then we see these linking arrows indicating the text threads, the flow of the text. Now, in this particular example, you may say, well, do we really need them? No, it's obvious in this case, the direction of the text flow, but it won't always be obvious. You may have a story that begins on one page and then continues on an interior page, in which case seeing the text threads can be very useful. And it's also useful if the flow of the text somehow becomes a little confused, because it can happen. Let me also point out that as well as seeing the text threads, we are seeing the invisible characters or the hidden characters. And if I come to the type menu, here is where they are shown and hidden, the very last item on the type menu. I think it's a good idea to work with them turned on because you can see where the paragraph marks are, you can see where the spaces are, and other hidden characters. One that you may not be familiar with is the hash mark, which indicates the end of the story. I'll move now to the second page by pressing Option and the page down, or Alt and page down, and I'm going to just talk about a few other things that are relevant to text threads. This, at first glance, looks the same as the first page, but when I select one of these stories or one of these frames, we see that it is not connected to the other frames. There's nothing but a visual relationship here. So if I were to delete the text in frame 2 or page 2, that's not going to affect the text on pages 1, 3 and 4. And with a continuous text flow, you would want that to happen. So how do we join stories together that need to be joined? Here's how. I'm going to select frame 1, click on the output, and then you can see that I now get this linking icon when I hover over the second text frame. And I'll click, and I now get the text threading arrow indicating that frame 1 flows to frame 2. And I would just repeat that process. And I've now created threaded text. Moving to the third page, sometimes you might want to do that in reverse. Occasionally, you want to split threaded text. And for this, you can use a script. You may remember when I created the typography workspace, I included the scripts panel. I didn't really say why at the time, but here's why. Scripts are very specific, tiny applications that you can use for particular tasks. And InDesign comes with some sample scripts, and one of them is called Split Story. The scripts come in these 3 different languages. We only need one of them. I'm going to use the JavaScript version. So scripts are a quite advanced topic. You can write your own, but you don't really need to know how to write the scripts in order to use the scripts, and these scripts are already there. If I scroll down we get to split story. So with the story selected, if I double click on that, you can now see that the threaded text is no longer threaded. Let's move to the next page where there is a related script. Perhaps I want to take one of these 4 pages out of the text flow. In this case, I want to remove page number 2. So I would select that and come to break frame. So the text flow now goes from 1 to 3 to 4, and page 2 or frame 2 is no longer a part of that text flow. And then lastly, you may on certain occasions want to break the text thread. This script is in a different folder. It's not in the samples folder. Instead, it is in the community folder, and it's called break text thread. And this is useful if you want to stop the text flow at a certain point. And I'm going to say that I want to stop the text flow after page 3 or frame 3. So I will select that, break text thread, and I want to break it after the selected frame. So the text flow continues as before from 1 to 2 to 3, and then it stops at this point. So there we have 3 related scripts: break text thread, break frame, and split story.